Well, after a couple of weeks of a deep freeze, it's time to get back to work on the Bugeye. In an earlier video, I prepared a dummy regulator for an alternator installation, and I'll put a link to that video up in the top corner so you can go check on that. Next up is to remove the old generator and replace it with the alternator. I'm going to remove the ductwork here to give myself some more room to access everything down below. So before I get started, I am going to completely disconnect the battery. Even though I have a cutoff switch and that's off, I'm going to remove the clamp from the battery just to eliminate any possibility of shorting out or what have you. And that way I don't have to worry about anything happening down around here when I replace the regulator. So let's get set up and get to work. All right, so first thing is I'm going to get the battery disconnected. So that's that done. I'll get that out of the way. And I'll just put a rag around that to keep it off there. There we go. And then I'll get that duct off of there. Now this should just pop off there. Yeah, pop off there. And as you can see, that gives me a lot better access to everything down here. Now, next, I'm going to take the drive or disconnect the drive from the back of the generator. And I have to be very careful you don't over tighten these when you put them on. So it shouldn't take too much to get off. There we go. So that's got that out of the way. And I'll disconnect the wires on the generator. Yeah, so now they've got the tack drive disconnected, I can unbolt the generator and pull it out. Yeah, temperatures last week got down to about minus 28 Celsius. And the last couple of days, it's been well above the plus on that, up around, well, I think it was +6 when I came out a little while ago. And there you go. Oh. Okay, so we've got the generator out, and we'll let's head over to the bench and we can do a side-by-side comparison between the two. Well, you can see placed side by side here that the front and rear mounting flanges are in exactly the same position between the two units. So bolting it back on shouldn't be an issue. And another advantage to this is, although they are physically the same size, the original dynamo weighs 14.5 pounds and the new one only weighs about 7.5 pounds. There is a significant weight savings in there. The next step then is to transfer over the pulley and the fan over to the new unit. Now, because the old generator and the new alternator are physically the same, I'm going to have to remember to keep this washer on here between the mounting flange here and where it mounts on the water pump on the cart, and that gives me the proper spacing. So I'll make sure I change that over. Okay, so I'm just going to use my impact to loosen this off. A 3/4 inch socket, which is the same size for both. Okay, so that's that done. Slide the pulley off, slide the fan off. And you can see the keyway on here, so I'll just get that lined up. And I will put this back on here. So that's that one. We'll slide this one off, along with its washer. I'll get a knife, cut that off. Now, cut that off there. Make sure I don't lose the key. And put the. I'll just give the fan a bit of a clean. Now this is a fan that I bought new when I put the dynamo in originally, because the original one was bent up quite a bit for some reason. There, let's clean the front face of it. Not that it really matters, but got new and shiny here, so may as well have new and shiny with this. Well, there we go. I'll get the fan on. And goes on there. Give the pulley a clean. As well. Now this is the original pulley. It was fine. I'll put that on. Making sure. Yeah. So that's that. Put the lock washer on. And that. And I'll just get a ratchet. Hold this tight. And I'll just give that a quick shot up with the there we go. That should be plenty tight enough. All right, so you can see we got the fan switched over. And I'm just going to flip that around, and we'll cut this off. And then there you can see the threads exposed for the drive for the tack, and the same here. And I can see this is already greased up in there, which is good. And I can see why this one isn't working. There's evidence of some overheating in here. But what I wanted to show you is you have the large tab on the generator, and then you have the large tab here on the new alternator or dynamometer. And then you got the small tab here and the corresponding small tab on the side of the dynamometer. So now that I have all that switched over, I will put that aside. We'll make sure I've got this one right. So, yeah, so this goes a longer bolt through the front hole with the washer in place. Or pardon me, I'll just check the threads on this hole here to make sure they're the same as that one. If not, I'll have to find another bolt. That actually looks like it might be fine threads. Yeah, it is. So I have to get a different bolt for that. There we go. So there's 5/16. And we'll check that that goes in there. Okay, so I've just cleaned up the threads in the casting here. It's for 5/16 UNF 24, I think it is. Yep. So UNF 24, and then the bolt threads in there quite nicely, so I won't have any issues with that when I install it on the car. And that is the next step. All right, so installation is just going to be the reverse of the removal. So I'll get this bolt in here first. And then this one in here. That's those two. And I'll get the belt on. And I'm going to get a new lock washer for that one. Now this is, you can see here, this is the old washer, and it's almost flat compared to the new washer, which has got a bit more of a, I don't know if you can see that side by side there. So we'll get rid of this one and install it with that one. We can pull this up now. Get that in there. Thread that in. So there's that. And that was snugged up. And then I'll get the nut, or the one underneath, tightened up. That's not too tight, I don't think. Tighten this one up. Well, there you can see I've got the new alternator physically installed in the car, and I've got the one connection up here. That's the larger one, and then this is the smaller one. That's the field. So once I got the tach drive in, then I can move on to replacing the regulator. Now that I have the tach drive snugged up to the back of the alternator and the two wires connected, I can now move over and start dealing with the wiring over here. So I'm just going to pop the cover off, and I'll be reusing that cover because the one on the other one is cracked. So I'll just set that aside, and then you can see this has got all the guts in it as before. So here I have the dummy regulator, and then here is the original regulator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wires off here and put them on exactly the same way as original to begin with, and then I'll show you which wires you have to switch around for this particular setup. So this is just going to be a one-for-one replacement. Let's make sure I've got these turned up so I can get a wire in there. That's the first one. There's that one. And then I'll use the second screw here. You know what? I think it's going to be easier if I remove this one from here, put this one in, put the new one in place, and work that way. So that's what I'm going to do here. So put this, make sure I get the wire or the retaining clip. I'll just move that over there and put this one into place. All right, So I've got that one screwed into position now. I think that'll make it a little easier to transfer those wires over. So I'll put the yellow one in here. So that one's just, yeah, so all of those are secure. Now I'm going to go grab the wiring diagram and double check all of those. I'm going to put my cover back on. And I'll be right back. Here I have a color wiring diagram. I'm just going to make sure that I have all the wires on here connected to the right terminals according to the original. So number 36 here goes to A1. 36 is the brown with the blue stripe. So that's the brown with the blue right there going to A1. And you can see the letters and that across the top here. And then the one going to A terminal is number 33 here. There should be two wires, both 33, and 33 is just the brown. The two brown wires snug in there. And then to the F terminal is number 29. And that's a yellow with green stripe. So I've got, you can see I've got the yellow with green stripe going to this terminal here, which is the F. And then going to the D terminal, you should have two, or number 25, which is yellow with no stripe. So that's these two wires right here. So there's a skinny one and a heavier one. Now the reason we can use the dummy regulator is that there is a built-in regulator in the alternator itself, and this is more or less used as a junction box. Now that I know the wires are in their correct spot as per the original, this is the before, and these are the instructions that came with the Dyno Alt. Now what I have to do, I have to move the wire for the warning light, which is originally located on the D terminal, and I have to fit the warning light wire to the F terminal. And that is the lighter gauge yellow wire. So I'm going to move that over from the D terminal to the F terminal, which is the one in the middle. And there we have the wiring all switched over. I moved the lighter gauge yellow wire from the D terminal over to the F terminal. So what that does now, yellow wire with the green stripe is the one that comes from the terminal on the side of the alternator, and then that will go to the light in the dashboard. Now, to the untrained eye, you could look underneath the bonnet here and you wouldn't know that there's an alternator installed. The regulator looks the same as stock, and other than the label on the alternator, you wouldn't know that that's any different. So next up is to reconnect the battery and make sure everything is working. Right, the battery's reconnected. I'll just turn that battery back on. That's good and tight. And let's get inside and see where we're at. Okay, we're sitting in the car, and I'll turn the ignition on. My little red ignition light comes on. I'm going to pull the choke out and see if we can get it started. Well, you can see that the ignition light went out, so that tells me that the wiring is done right. So quite happy with that. And that's actually the first start in about 2 or 3 months. So I'm quite happy it started up quite nicely. Oil pressure is up high. So let's see if we can get our electrical is working. Well, signal light's working. Horn's working. Wipers are working. Fuel gauge is working. So there we go. Let's let the choke off a little bit. And the tach, of course, is working. So let's go look at that alternator in the engine bay. So there we go. Everything's lined up nice. Fans running nice. We're going to shut things down. Then I'll reinstall that duct, and then I'll call it a day. Well, I'm quite happy with how that installation has turned out, and time will tell if everything is going to be working all right. As far as I can see so far, we're good to go. There's a couple of reasons that I switched from the generator to the alternator, and the main reason is that the alternator provides a consistent and smooth power through all the rev ranges. With a generator at idle and at low RPM, it's not producing as much power as it does at higher RPM, and then you'll see that in things like the headlights dimming. So if you liked the video, please be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget that little bell icon. Click on that and you'll get notified when the next video comes out. And if you missed the previous video where I made the dummy regulator, I'll put a link to that video up in the top corner. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.